I think we all want to know what's going on with TSM, what's going on with E8, and what's going on with Rostermania in general for Apex Legends. A lot of things to consider here, as well as the old Optic roster. Where are they at? What's Knoqd doing now that we have the E8 news? So firstly, the very serious, definitely not a troll, definitely not a joke, beef with Sykes and Imperial How. Of course, these guys are arch nemesis now. Not really. Of course, these guys are still friends, but I do think that the whole situation that went down was quite interesting. So you guys know last year the same thing happened. You had Bullet, Tempo, a couple others as well go out to the firing range in real life, actually touching some grass here. You had Jen Burton, you had Verholst involved in this, Imperial How and co. Sykes was with them last time, didn't get the invite this time, and you know, of course, nice invite, guys. Thinks it was a lot of fun. Hal's saying it wasn't his fault. Tempo's the one that set this up. We all know though, especially if you're a big conspiracy theorist into Rostermania, tinfoil hats on, this was all planned. Obviously Sykes is not liked by Imperial How anymore, and so that's why this is really going on, if you know it, at the end of the day. No, all seriousness, I just thought it was funny to mention, but also some Rostermania roster drama. Let's talk about this. Inside of the EMEA scene, Made in Heaven is a team you all know and saw at the Split 1 playoffs, and unfortunately, I say unfortunately just because, for those of you that do get cut from rosters, of course, it's unfortunate for you. But for the viewers, we love to see some roster updates. But Nags is going to be joining this team, it seems, and actually got the announcement from Synetic. First tournament win with our new team. Welcome to Made in Heaven, Nags. Of course, we saw a lot of teams playing. We saw a lot of rosters kind of testing themselves out. So not to say that this wasn't already known, but I guess the first official wordage on it, especially inside of their tournament, coming from Synetic. So really interesting stuff. Nags also obviously a very great player. We'll see how this one turns out in the future tournaments ahead. Also had to mention the big one, Zach going on about E8. Now, what's going on with E8? I gotta say, buckle up. It is a long story and it actually connects the dots with what's going on with TSM and many other stories, and Knoqd as well. What's going on with Knoqd? So firstly, someone had laid it out 2 days ago about Zach kind of explaining multiple options, and now we know which options it seems like he's going with. So the idea was, does Shooby come back? Ever since obviously Shooby kind of got let go, they're going to be doing this other roster. Unfortunately enough, that didn't work out, so he really could have had Shooby come back, but nonetheless, that seems to be off the table. Okay, so Shooby is gone. Shooby's let go. One of the options was maybe Shooby comes back and plays with Slayer. Obviously, Slayer got cut from LG, so it makes total sense. Knoqd at second place. So this was for undisclosed reasons as to why Knoqd would want to be involved. Maybe there's a new org. Knoqd's got that grip on that new org. They want to go around him. Maybe Knoqd and Zach had something planned with that, but seems that maybe that's not going anymore. Then number 3 was Luckford, because the roles just simply make sense. And then number 4 was Slayer. Slayer's playoff points with Zach might be enough to guarantee champs. So if it isn't Shooby coming back, then Zach is leaning towards Slayer and one of the other two. Well, I'm here to tell you today that one of those other two is not Knoqd. It's actually going to be Slayer and Lux, it seems, and that's the team he was playing with. So here are some explanations coming directly from Zach and in discussion with Alberlelli as which ways he might be leaning just 2 days ago, and then we'll give you an update as to how that actually came out. Roll the 2 clips.
Where are you looking at? Little leaky poop?
Like Slayer, Lux, Knoqd. That's kind of all there is.
I thought you already had Knoqd.
Maybe
something.
Yeah, I mean, we were gonna team with Knoqd, but with all this shit happening, shit's going haywire. So for example, if I play with Shooby and Slayer,
you'd have 2 anchors.
They both want to play Fragger, which is even crazier. There's 2 anchors that both want to transit. And then the other roster with Knoqd is good for its own reasons that I can't say. And then the other roster with Lux is roles make sense, right? And then if Shooby decides he doesn't want a team, then I'll probably try to play with Knoqd and Slayer, or Slayer and Lux, something like that. I don't know.
So after that conversation with Alberlelli, talking about these players, talking about all this stuff going on, Zach then goes on for a 41-minute session on his live stream to talk about the collapse of the E8 roster and what's been happening. And so Zap is obviously going over to TSM, and it seems like his trial is going pretty well. And, we'll talk more about TSM in just a second, but this kind of eliminated one lane for E8. Then Shooby was obviously kind of let go in all of this, so that eliminated the second lane. They brought Knoqd in. Knoqd, we all all thought was going to work out with E8. That doesn't work out. Knoqd goes his own ways, and it seems like Knoqd's got something else cooking up. And so now he's trying to make do with what's left. And I do think that Lux and Slayer are good options here. And I'm interested to see how it all plays. But here's what basically Zach had to say about the E8 situation and why things were collapsing the way that they were. Roll the clip.
So that's how we get to the off season. Now we get to the off season, or like the post LAN, and Talmadge goes LFT. Me and Zap were getting a couple offers, but we really wanted to play with Sykes. Now, keep in mind, I want you guys to know everything that I'm saying right now, Shooby is well aware of. Me and Shooby have talked many times recently, and we made everything like in the timeline very clear. I really wanted to play with Sykes. I think Sykes is a great player. I think he's a great anchor. Like, end of story. I know Zap really, really wanted to play with Sykes as well. He was very vocal about that. Zap thinks Sykes is a great player. At the time, Talmadge was LFT. He was not committed to E8. It turned into a situation where it was made out to seem that like Sykes and Talmadge are like leaning a similar direction. Like whatever way one goes, the other one might go. It wasn't 100%, but it was seeming that way. So I made sure to make up with Talmadge and do like what I could and say what I could and have the calls that I could. So we worked with Talmadge to get Talmadge back locked into the team. Talmadge had offers from a couple teams. I won't say who because I don't know how much he wants public and what he doesn't want public. So I'll just respect that. But he had offers from, I think, 3 teams he had like confirmed offers from. And after getting all 3 confirmed offers, he decided that he was going to recommit to E8. And that was awesome. That was great news for me. I was really excited about that. So I was excited about that. Then we had to have the conversation about like Sykes. So we have the conversation about Sykes. Talmadge would prefer to work with Shooby. Zap and I would prefer to play with Sykes. We actually didn't even reach an agreement as a team. That call just kind of ended. We said we will figure it out another day. And then Sykes let me know that he's committing another direction. And that was fine. At that point in time, I asked Zap a question about a very specific player. I said, do you want to play with this specific player? He said, no, I would prefer to play with Shooby. Now, this is where it gets strange, is it makes it seem like we want to play with Shooby at that point, which is fine. But there's some DMs after that like very explicitly explain that me and Zap had offers as a duo with like, I won't even say the orgs, but it was like at least 2 other orgs that were rumoring to offer the roster around 7.5 to like 8.5K a month, right? So at that point, Zap lets me know that this is like really big life-changing money for me and that he thinks he would like probably want to go that route.
So you then have Zach come after the scrims last night to say we had a really bad day. They got 13th here. If you haven't seen the scrim results already, we'll talk about those in a second. But Slayer was definitely ill. So we tried to swap the roles to compensate and it didn't work. Also, don't think I'm a fan of landing at Dome. But so far we have a 3rd and 13th. Tomorrow we will have a better day. Now people seem to not be fans of this roster change, which I don't understand, to be quite honest with you. E8 is cooked. Bro went from Zap and Shooby to Lux and Slayer. Lux is still fine, but Slayer pickup is cooked. I don't know. I understand what was going on a couple of days ago. I get what people were trying to say about Slayer. I don't think that the Slayer hate was negated at all. I felt like it was totally uncalled for. I think Slayer is a good addition. I do think that he can make a very good fit to a team somewhere. Is he going to be as crazy as Shooby off the start? Maybe not. I think a lot of people on paper would have Shooby over Slayer, but I don't think Slayer is someone you should ignore inside of Rostermania, especially considering the spot that Zach's found himself in. So I'm interested to see how it all falls into place. But then you go over to what happened with TSM and what's going on with Knoqd. So firstly with TSM. So the update was that Zapdo trial going well and showing signs that this one may last. TSM is definitely going to get a good pickup here if they do secure Zap. Also, at first, TSM Reps was heavily IGLing, but seems like now he's going to be doing a co-IGL and macro style with Verhulst transitioning into the primary role. So TSM is taking a total 180 flip opposite change than what I would have ever anticipated them doing. And with Pro League next weekend, TSM Zap might be locked in pretty soon. Of course, they got to dial this thing down pretty quickly. Now, we also got a clip coming from Knoqd, and a lot of people are trying to piece together what's going on with Knoqd. Of course, Fallout had posted this same thing regarding E8 earlier and saying what's going on with Knoqd, but he has his ideas. Well, Knoqd actually seemingly hinted towards some things, saying that it kind of is an obvious decision, but we do think Skittles is not going to be involved in this, and basically the clips are going to sum it up as to why. Roll the clip.
I should be scrimming tomorrow with, my team. I don't know if they said anything, so.
If you do that, I'm just gonna play.
I think most people can put 2 and 2 together who I'm playing with, but no, I'm not taking split 2 off.
Now, according to a response by Drone over on Fallout's tweet, it is going to be dropped announcing that he's going to be playing with the following roster. It'll be dropped, Knoqd, and Shooby. So I think Knoqd made it very clear that you could put 2 and 2 together, that dropped and Knoqd would be going back and playing with one another. However, the addition of Shooby is quite the announcement. I think it's a very talented roster. I think this team on paper makes a lot of sense. Now, of course, for World Cup, it's still drop, Snipe, and Shooby because these guys have already committed to one another and that roster lock had already taken place. But ALGS, on the other hand, is a different story. We still have about 7 days out until those rosters get ready to lock. So I really like this new update. I like this new roster. Interested to see if it actually has the success that I think we're expecting it to on paper. Now, in all of this, we talk about auto-qualling for champs. We talk about the World Cup coming up as well, and all these rosters needing to play a certain way so that you can actually lock things in. And honestly, it's super confusing, and I know a lot of people get aggravated with it. But what really is annoying, especially what tech brings into light here, and honestly, I look for Respawn to change this pretty soon because of how much complaining has been done about it. And honestly, I think we all agree this rule is kind of stupid, but this is tech saying day one of asking Apex Esports to remove the loophole that allows an entire new team to hold Pro League spots for ALGS. Retweet if you agree. And if you haven't seen this already, this has been done multiple times and honestly in different forms and fashions, different ways. It could be Pro League, it could be for other reasons, but basically, like the synopsis, the easiest way to explain it is you see it most commonly in Pro League spots. So you'll have a Pro League spot that's available and some guy who hasn't played like the entire year or in quite some time is on the substitute lineup, and so they can sometimes hold a Pro League spot by having a substitute that is inactive, does not play, but they can get 2 new guys, which makes the team an entirely new team. But because they have that captain and they have 2 out of the 4 players being former people that had the Pro League spot, they technically get to keep that Pro League spot. So the tiebreaker, if you guys are not aware, goes down to the captain, and that's where we saw the drama come out from the EMEA scene months ago, where the captain tried to snake his 2 teammates for no days off, and then basically they turned around and the substitute was informed. They all turned on the captain got removed, and finally it got overruled. So there's all kind of loopholes, like Tech says, and I think it's kind of cringy that this still exists, and it needs to be probably a little bit more regulated. Anmu comes in to say that I'm surprised the rule is still a thing, to be honest. That kind of rule is only going to get exploited. A case-by-case basis, I agree with this, should be used because some scenarios are one-offs. But using a player who hasn't even played a Pro League game to hold a spot is just a silly rule. That even started to tag Tab in on this, obviously the guy who changes some of the rules every now and then, and I'm looking for ALGS to make an update to this pretty soon.